before I start, I always like to tell folks that as you're asking questions, if you have questions, try to keep them as broad as you possibly can make them. If you have an individual situation that you really need to discuss, I am happy to speak to you offline. My phone number, my contact information is right here on the screen. And then I know we can put it in the chat and it will be at the end of the slide deck as well. And you're free to, contact me at any time. But if you could keep those comments or questions as broad as you possibly can, I'd appreciate it. And then I do tend to stop. I have periodic stops where I can take questions. Generally, there are a lot of questions. So by waiting at the end, a lot of times there are questions that can be answered along the way. So I might be stopping along the way if it looks like we do have quite a few questions. So if Shannon or Diane, if you could just let me know if there are quite a few, we can stop along the way. So let's go ahead and get started. So as Diane said, we are part of the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Project. We are actually the granted program for from Social Security. So we are created and funded by the Social Security Administration. That doesn't mean I work for SSA. It means that sometimes I have some secret phone numbers. I've got some back doors. I've got some other people that I can contact when there are situations. We are a free service, which also means you don't need to have a referral. You can call the Ticket to Work hotline, and oftentimes they will send us a referral, but you can also contact us directly with questions. Sometimes we'll open a case, sometimes we won't. It really all depends on how appropriate the situation is. But again, it is a free service, and a referral is not needed. And really what we're looking at is to help you understand and to use something called work incentives to become more independent financially through work. There are a lot of work incentives. There are a lot of working rules that go with working and receiving all of the entitlements. So Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, housing, SNAP, all of those pieces, waiver. I always say they don't play nice with each other. All the rules stay in their own lanes. So what this program does, what WIPA does, is really help you understand how working is going to impact all of the benefits that you might be receiving. And again, we don't function as claims reps or rep payees, but again, we do have the ability to make some phone calls to find out exactly what's happening, to go into records and get more information. Oftentimes folks are getting those letters from Social Security that they don't make a whole lot of sense. We all know Social Security has their own way of expressing themselves. So oftentimes when you get a letter, you can always give me a call. And most of the time I'll say, okay, read me the letter, and then I'll let you know what they're asking and how to proceed. And then we do assist with filling out some of the forms that are required, whether there's a continuing eligibility or if there's overpayments, reporting income, things like that. And we do assist within Social Security for that. We serve individuals who receive Social Security disability benefits. It's that easy. If you're receiving SSI, SSDI, some people might know it as DAC benefits if you're getting disabled adult child benefits, CDB benefits, if you're between the ages of 14 and full retirement age. So that's not 65 anymore. It might be 66, 67. That's who we serve. Live in the state of Maryland. However, I will say that the Work Incentive Planning and Assistance Project, there is a WIPA project in every state. So if you've got family members, colleagues, friends that are living in other states, but they need this type of information, you can contact me as well, and I can get you the name of the organization that's covering all of the other states, all 50 states, plus the territories as well. So Guam, Puerto Rico, we also have folks there. And when we're talking about work, this really includes anyone who's employed, self-employed, you're looking for employment, or you're just getting ready to be employed. You want to know what's going to happen if I'm going to go to work, what's going to happen to my benefits if I start receiving a pay stub. I had somebody ask me the other day why benefits counseling was so important and why it's important to have done before employment is looked at. And it's really quite easy. The last thing you want to have happen is you're working you're spending a lot of time looking for just that job, just the right job that's going to bring you that income that you're looking for, and only to find out that maybe you're going to lose your benefits, or your benefits are going to be reduced, or your Medicaid's going to be lost, or your waiver is going to be lost, or because of that work income, there's going to be a negative impact. And then you either have to make a decision about what's going to happen to the job that you have right now. Should you keep it? What conversations do you have to have with your employer? So it really is better to have that information before you get to that point. So you have all the information you need starting out when you're looking for a job, or the job change, or there's a job situation, an employment situation of some sort. So really what we do is we give you all the information so you can make an informed decision, that you're not taken by surprise by letters that you might get 3 or 6 or 9 months down the road. That's really what we're looking at. And that's why it's so important to have that benefits counseling piece. When you contact us, we're going to ask a lot of questions. There's going to be an intake. We'll ask you to sign the releases of information. And then at that point, we'll run something called a benefits query, where we get information from Social Security. We share all this with the beneficiary. And one of the pieces that will come back within the benefits query that folks really want to know is, when are they going to get their next medical review? Under Social Security rules, everyone is subject to a continuing medical review, either every 3, 5, or 7 years. And in that benefits query, we're going to be able to tell you that, in addition to some other important facts. But we know a lot of times that one of the primary pieces folks want. So that's really what's going to happen when you contact us. And then, of course, we write the benefit summary. Um, so today we're going to talk about an application overview. We're going to talk about the working rules for SSI and SSDI. We're going to talk about work incentives, and then some of the policy changes that we've seen over the last 6 months to a year. What's going to happen moving forward? I really can't tell you at this point. I can only tell you about what the current policies are, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So before we start, I always like to go through a checklist for success. Um, when I first was doing my training in 2008, I was in the room, and I'm one of those people that if I don't like if I don't like the rule, I'm going to figure out a way to go around the rule. So I was in my training, and I was sitting kind of towards the back. I am not front row girl at all. But I kept raising my hand going, well, why is the rule like that? Why are the regulations written like that? And finally, somebody from Social Security leaned over and said, don't look for logic. And generally, I get people that laugh, but it absolutely is 100% true. Don't look for logic. The rule is the rule. If you try to understand why the rule is set up the way it is, you'll just make yourself a little angry, I think. But really, don't look for logic. When you're calling the Social Security office, and that's the number, make sure that you're writing down the date, the name of the person you spoke with, what you asked, and what they told you. Now, unfortunately, walk-ins right now are discouraged. You can walk in. You might be sitting at the local field office all day, and you probably will not see anybody. So they're really discouraging walk-ins. In order to see someone in person, you do need to make an appointment. You can either do that online, or you can use that 1-800 number. The best time to call the 1-800 number is first thing in the morning. The hotline opens at 7 a.m. It closes at, I believe, 9 p.m. It's a rolling, it's a rolling operator. So that means that the East Coast opens first. That's why I always tell folks, call first thing in the morning. Don't call the first week of the month. Don't call the last week of the month. The reason for that is folks are getting their letters about there's going to be a change in benefits, or they're not going to see their benefit for the next month. So you've got a lot of those folks that have issues that are making those phone calls. Again, make sure that you're writing the name of the person and what you asked. The reason why you want to write down what you asked and what they told you is because if they give you information and you use that information and for some reason there's a negative impact to your benefits, you need to come back and show the date, the name of the person, and what you asked. They do record those calls, but it's very important that you do that. Make sure that you're making copies of all the documents that you give to Social Security, both the forms that you fill out and the evidence that you want them to have. And don't lose those copies. It's very important because chances are, if there's a form to be filled out, you're going to fill it out more than one time. If they sent you something called a work activity report, you're going to fill that out every time there's a change of employment. Anytime there is discrepancy in employment. So just make sure that you're making copies because again, chances are you're going to fill out the form again, or in some cases, Social Security is going to lose that form. Social Security does not work electronically. So that means you can certainly fax paperwork to Social Security. But when you're contacting Social Security and you've spoken to someone and they give you, say, their email address, do not include an attachment because they will not do anything with that attachment. They will not open the attachment and they won't save the attachment. So don't even try to do it like that. You can fax, or again, you can drop off paperwork at the local field office. There are drop boxes. But again, make sure that you're making copies. Make sure that you're promptly opening and reading all the mail that Social Security is giving you. If there's a deadline, make sure that you're complying with that deadline date. If you need help, seek it immediately. And again, keep all that paperwork, letters, and mailing envelopes in your file. The reason why I'm saying to maintain the mailing envelopes is oftentimes you'll get a letter that says that they want a response within 15 days. But if you don't get the letter, if the letter is dated December 1st and you're getting the letter today, you're already out of compliance because your 15 days passed. So you want to make sure to keep those letters so you can show the postmark. And don't lose them as well. Remember that you must report pay stubs every month to Social Security. Be sure that you're reporting to the correct field office. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a minute. You can report by mail, you can fax, or you can use the My SSA account. And in fact, everyone should have a My SSA account. If you don't, you should do it immediately because really Social Security is moving to a more electronic way of reporting. And I know I just said they won't take anything electronically, but what they are taking is they want folks to report through the My SSA app. They want reporting through the login from the website. There are a couple of different ways of reporting. As of April, Social Security started a new program called the Payroll Information Exchange. And what this does is that the program will be exchanging wage data directly from the employer. So in some cases, you will not need to report monthly to Social Security. However, you do need to keep those pay stubs because you will be doing work activity reports. And even though Social Security is going to send you a letter that says, great news, you don't need to report to us anymore because we're going to get your payroll information directly from your employer. You still need to keep those the payroll records because if there's a discrepancy in the reporting, you need to have something tangible to be able to show Social Security that the data is incorrect. Again, you are still responsible for reporting a new employer, for starting and stopping a job, and if for some reason the employer fails to report through the system. So again, you do need to maintain those pay stubs. And then something that I always like to remind folks is that remember that if you're receiving SSI and or Medicaid, you must keep your resources and assets below $2,000 for the individual and $3,000 for the couple in order in any month to maintain eligibility. The other thing is, remember, Social Security is federal. So we're going to talk a little bit about the differences in a minute, but there's a difference. Social Security is fed, Medicaid is state. So you've got two different organizations that are managing. Social Security is only managing the benefit side of SSI. The state is managing Medicaid and medical assistance. So you want to keep that in mind. And then everyone should have their own My Social Security account. You do need to report earnings, apply for benefits, and track application status. And I know I have heard from people that there are some issues of getting a My Social Security account. The best thing for that is to make an appointment with Social Security and then go in and let them kind of tech it through for you and try to troubleshoot what the issue is. I know you have to use the ID Me system, and I did hear from some folks that that system for them may not have been working. So I would say contact Social Security directly. And then again, when a major life change occurs, there's a change of address, marriage, employment, loss of job, divorce, you have children, remember to report to Social Security immediately. When it comes to the address, Social Security does not forward mail. So that means that they kick mail back. So in some cases, that can cause a disruption in your benefits. I had a parent of a beneficiary that contacted me on Friday who wasn't sure why their benefits had been stopped. And it was simply because Social Security had been trying to get in touch with the rep payee. The rep payee had changed address. They had moved. They didn't contact Social Security. That meant that Social Security needed some forms signed. They couldn't get the form signed. So they put the beneficiary in non-pay status until the rep payee could get those forms signed. So it's very important to make sure that you're letting Social Security know about the address change and then anything else that you need to let them know. I generally recommend that you contact both the 1-800 number and the local field office. If you don't have a local field office number, please feel free to call me. I have all the local field office numbers, so I'm happy to give that to you. Okay, so let's talk about initial eligibility and that initial application. So when you're applying for Social Security disability benefits, either SSI or SSDI, Social Security is using this definition. And it basically says the SSA defines disability for both SSI and SSDI programs as the inability to engage in substantial gainful activity. Social Security calls this SGA, by reason of any medical impairment. So basically what this says is that an individual is not able to go out and work and earn, and there's a number, $1,620 in 2025 without any supports. Now that doesn't mean, oh, well, they need to go to school and they need to get a degree or they need to get training. It means that, do they need a job coach? Do they need case management? Do they need paratransit? Do they need metro access? Do they need assistive technology? Is the job going to be accommodated in some way? That's what Social Security is looking at. So it's not only the medical determination, but also they're looking at all of those other pieces. And again, there's a number that goes with it. And you're going to hear that word SGA a lot. In 2025, SGA is $1,620 gross a month. So that means Social Security is looking at the person's ability to work and earn $1,620 gross a month without support. So they're just going to go out and get that job and everything's going to be great. And then in 2026, that number is increasing to $1,690. So that means that, again, go out, you're going to get a job, you're going to earn $1,690 without any supports. That's for initial eligibility. So once you get past initial eligibility, the rules change a little bit. But if you're going through initial eligibility, this is what Social Security is looking at. What are the accommodations? What are the pieces that will be put in place in order for the individual to earn at any level, really? And then again, for a blind person, it's a little bit different. This is, they're not generally subject to the substantial work test or that substantial gainful activity. They're looking at who has visions no better than 20/200 and the better with glasses, or it's a field of vision no greater than 20 degrees. So it's a little bit different when you're looking at somebody that's visually impaired. Okay, so when you start the application process, here's what you're going to do. Okay, you're going to either call that 1-800 number, you're going to go to SSA online, or you're going to make that phone appointment. One of those three. The best time for an individual to apply is a month. Well, let me back that up. Prior to the age of 18, Social Security is going to look at developmental milestones. After the age of 18, they're going to look at that SGA rule that we just talked about. So when a person turns 18, a month after their 18th birthday, that's when an individual needs to apply for adult disability. You cannot pre-apply. That can't happen. So you can't be, 17 and 9 months and pre-apply for adult disability. It has to be, you have to be 18. Really, the best time to apply is the month after a person turns 18. When you go online, the online application is for anyone that's 18 to 64 in 10 months. You're either applying for both SSI or SSDI or both. You must have a My Social Security account, which is what we've just talked about. Never have been married. That means you can't be married or you've never been married. Have never applied for SSI for yourself or a child. So this is a first-time application. And you are a U.S. citizen. But there are some non-citizens that may be able to use the online application if they meet the SSI eligibility requirements. In the PowerPoint that was sent out to everyone, you'll see there are some hot links, and one of them is you'll see documents you may need when you apply for substantial security income, SSI. And then I've also given you the website where you can go to start that application process. When you apply, their interview will take place. The information will be entered securing the date of the application. Okay, so the date of your application in some cases will be the date of your eligibility. If you're making the application online, there is a 60-day deadline to complete the online application. So you can stop and start it. I generally tell folks, make sure you have a big old glass of wine next to you, because there is a lot of information they're going to ask you. And a lot of it is information you may have to look for or really go into a lot of detail. Once you've gone through that initial application, now when you are making that application, you literally are telling folks, you're telling the Social Security, you're telling SSA about the beneficiary's worst day. That worst day may only come once a year, but that's what you're telling folks. And you're telling Social Security, you're going to be as specific as you possibly can be. You don't want to use general statements, especially when you're filling out the application. And as you're going through the interview. The reason for that is the person that you're going to be interviewing with, the claims rep you'll be interviewing with in Social Security, is not the person that will make the determination. It's going to go to the Disability Determination Division. So you really want to be as specific as you possibly can. You can color outside the lines of the application. You can include anecdotal information. I had a mom that called me several years ago about an application for her son. I always give this example. It's not the best example, but it does paint a pretty good picture. She was very upset because her son had not been found eligible for Social Security disability benefits. And she said, well, don't they understand? He says inappropriate things at work. I don't know anybody that has never said anything inappropriate at work. There's something, right? Nobody is that good. Well, come to find out, he was doing a little bit more than saying inappropriate. He was threatening. He was very aggressive. He was really inappropriate. It's a little bit more than just saying inappropriate things at work. So she really had to look at the anecdotal piece of it and get very specific. So when you're speaking with the claims rep, when you're turning in the paperwork, make sure that you are as descriptive as you possibly can be. The other thing is you're going to get something called the activities for daily living, and it's going to ask, you know, is the beneficiary able to drive? The answer is going to be yes or no, not well, with proper training, yes, because that can tip it. It's either no, they're not able to drive, no, they're not able to take public transportation, or yes, not well, with training or with this or with that. Because they want to know right now, not what's going to happen in the future. Now, once the application has been made, um, paperwork's going to be mailed that is required to be completed and returned within a timeline. You're going to get a computer generated document that's going to be a transcript of either the phone interview that you get or the claims rep in-person interview. Make sure that you check that and make any changes that need to be made. And then again, make sure that you're copying everything that Social Security sends you. There will be another interview that'll take place either by phone or face to face if the application is made electronically. The one thing I do want to stress is as you're filling out the application, make sure that you are checking the boxes that you want to apply for both SSDI and SSI. Social Security will put you in the category that you best fits. You're applying for adult disability. And then they're going to put you in either SSI, SSDI, or both. But you want to make sure to let them know that you are applying for both. Now, once all of that has taken place, the paperwork will be sent over, will be moved to the Social Security will send the disability report form to the Disability Determination Service. Okay. At that point, DDS is going to be looking for medical history. Make sure that you're contacting the physician's doctor's office, letting them know that you are applying for Social Security disability. Many times, many times, the reason why a person is denied is not because the application was filled out incorrectly. It was because medical history was not returned in a timely manner. So you want to make sure to contact your local physicians, everyone that you're listing that they're going to get medical history from, and let them know that you are applying for Social Security disability. SSA will take medical records if you give them the medical records, but they're still going to want to see the actual medical records directly from the physician. At that point, the information is going to be reviewed. DDS may or may not request information that's called the functionality report for the adult. And this is where they're looking for your work history, when the disability began, and what treatment has been given. And there's a 5-step sequential process to evaluate a person's disability. Once DDS has the application, you can call this 410-308-4350 number, and you can get the name of the examiner. I highly recommend that you get the name of the examiner. The reason for that is that way you can call them and you can make sure that they have all the information they need. You can call, hey, did you hear back from this doctor? Did you hear back from that doctor? If they say no, that's where you can get involved to make sure that the medical history is being received the way it should be. DDS may request on behalf of SSA a medical exam. Social Security pays for the exam. That's not a plus, it's not a minus. It just means they need more information. Determination will be sent to Social Security, and at that point, you're either going to be found eligible for benefits, or there's going to be a denial. At that point, you can look at the apply for reconsideration. At that point, if there's another denial at reconsideration stage, that'll go to an administrative law judge. You can also choose if you are if there is a denial, but during the denial you say, "Well, you know what? I really should have told them this," or "You know what? I went to this really great webinar given by this awesome Marilyn Morrison who I realized after listening to her, I should have done this instead." That's okay. You can let that application lapse after 60 days. You can start all over again. It just goes into fairy dust. They don't do a compare and contrast. And you can give them the information that you want them to have. It just means that your date of eligibility will be moved. Unfortunately, because of the current Social Security situation, there is a lack of manpower. The offices are really overburdened at this point. This process can take up to 1 year. Now there is something called a compassionate allowance, and these are really very specific situations health-wise. And you can go to something called the Blue Book on the Social Security website, and you can look up the processes for a compassionate allowance. But otherwise, the entire process, unfortunately, will take up to a year. Again, make sure that you're letting Social Security know everything that they need to know. Make sure that at the date of application, you do not have more than $2,000 in resources, and that you're also letting them know that you're applying for both SSI and SSDI. Now, some of the tips and tricks. Most children under the age of 18 will not qualify because Social Security is looking at the parent's income and resources. So once a person turns 18, only their money will count. So they're much more likely to be eligible. So make sure, as I said, you can't pre-apply. You can apply a month after they turn 18. When you complete the application, make sure you're focusing on how the disability limits the person's activities, especially the ability to work. So standing, walking, lifting, handling, seeing, hearing, speaking, understanding, and following instructions. So it's not all about that medical piece of it. That's a part of it. But in order for a person to work, what exactly are the limitations? What are the accommodations that would have to be put in place? And make sure that you're looking at that and focusing on that when you're making that application. The quickest way to be approved is meeting or equaling a disability in the listing of impairments. And this is a link to the Blue Book. So again, this will be in the PowerPoint that was sent out. If you can find, you'll find that adult listing of impairments and use their verbiage. So as you're making that application, refer back to the verbiage they're using in the Blue Book. So use Social Security's verbiage. So if you're describing a medical condition, use their verbiage. If you're describing any kind of accommodations, use Social Security's verbiage. You're doing their job for them. They'll be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, check, check. This is all that it needs." And that's the link for that. If the person has done any paid or unpaid work, get letters and statements from the employers or others. So you can get statements from the job coach, school staff, support coordinator explaining how the disability limited work activities, even if there's volunteer work. So that means paid or unpaid work, get statements from the employers. If there were any anecdotal situations that need to be noted, make sure that you're getting those statements because that really does go a long way. The disability must limit their ability to work, not really prevent them from working, but limit them from working. But again, it can prevent them from working as well. And again, this is the Blue Book listing. All right, so let's talk about the differences between SSI and SSDI. I'm looking to see if we have any questions or comments. I can't see, but
Yeah, not seeing any so far, Marilyn.
Okay. All right, good. All right, so we'll move on to SSI. So SSI is the cash benefit paid to individuals who meet medical disability and financial needs criteria. Basically, you have no work history and you have less than $2,000 in resources. There's a financial need. In 2025, the maximum amount that you can receive from SSI is $967, and that is increasing in 2026 to $994. So that means if you're not working, if you're not getting SSDI, the max that you can get is $994 in 2026. This is directly associated with Medicaid. And again, there is that resource limit of $2,000. And I do tend to harp on that a lot, as my kids will say, because it's really important that you manage that resources and make sure that you're not going over that resource limit. Social Security is pretty hard and fast when that $2,000 limit is breached, as well as Medicaid. So SSI again is people who receive SSI payments are automatically eligible for Medicaid in Maryland. They're automatically enrolled in Maryland. Now, I worked in Virginia for 20 years, and I can tell you in Virginia, the individuals are not automatically enrolled, but in Maryland, if you receive SSI payments, you are automatically eligible and enrolled for Medicaid. A person is eligible for SSI who has a severe disability that meets the criteria, and you have countable income under $967 a month, and that's $994 in 2026. So countable income means any type of income. That means that if you're getting SSDI of $1,200 a month, you're not going to be eligible for SSI. If you're getting an annuity, in some cases, if there's child support, I have had some situations where child support was paid directly to the child, then there can be an offset. It can cause it absolutely can cause the 967 to be decreased. There's an offset to that. The offset is not as much when there's earned income. There's unearned income and earned income. When it's unearned income, it's a one-to-one offset. And we're going to talk a little bit about earned income in a moment. And you must, again, have those countable resources under $2,000. And that includes almost all unearned income. So Social Security, disability, and then about half, less than half of earned income. But it can also mean annuities. I had a young woman several years ago that had a medical judgment. So she had an annuity that she was getting every month due to a car accident that she was in. And that was a problem because she was getting about $1,200 a month from a judgment. And unfortunately, that was kicking her out of the SSDI side of it. So there was a lot of handling that needed to be done with that one, unfortunately. But there is going to be an automatic offset. That means that if you're not, that is one way that an individual would not be found eligible. Again, with SSI comes Medicaid. Medicaid is state. Okay. So that what that means is you might get something that says you're no longer eligible for SSI. We're going to move you over to the SSDI side. You don't need to worry about the $2,000 in resources anymore. But wait a minute, you're still on medical assistance. You need to worry about that $2,000. So when you get that letter that says, hey, don't worry about the $2,000 anymore, that's coming from the feds, and they're primarily talking about SSI. They are not talking about medical assistance. Medical assistance is still looking at $2,000. And there are exclusionary accounts such as ABLE accounts and special needs trusts that we'll talk about briefly as well. So let's talk about some of the resources that are counted by Social Security. Cash, savings bonds, stocks, bonds, CDs, IRAs, land that you own but not lived on. You just got a plot of land somewhere. Anything owned that is converted to cash are used for food and shelter. So that means that you sell a lot of stuff, and that can be looked at as a resource. Resources of a spouse, resources of a parent if the beneficiary is under the age of 18. Very important to remember that. I've had this happen a couple of times, and I brought this up when we were speaking with some Doris counselors the other day. Savings bonds. I have had a number of times where grandparents start buying savings bonds as soon as the baby's born, and they just are buying savings bonds every year, and that's their thing. They buy savings bonds and they buy savings bonds. And then maybe the parents forget about it. Maybe the parents don't even know about it. And they apply for SSI, and then suddenly they get a letter, maybe 1 or 2 years after eligibility, to say, hey, we just discovered you have $14,000 in resources, savings bonds. You're either going to be terminated, or, by the way, you have an overpayment because we shouldn't have been paying you in the first place. So make sure that you're talking to family and friends when you're making that application, especially family, to make sure that that situation hasn't happened. And I know it seems few and far between, but you'd be surprised how often it does happen. I've had it happen to me at least a half a dozen times where individuals, there might be 14 or $15,000 because grandma and grandpa have been buying savings bonds since the baby was born. And now the value of the savings bond is 14 or $15,000, but unfortunately they've been on SSI for 2 years and they owe $18,000 back in overpayment because they've been over-resourced this whole time. And so they have to cash in the savings bonds to pay back the overpayment and make sure that they stay within the SSI system. So be very, very careful about that. The SSI resources that are excluded, and this is the list. You can own a home, you can have household goods, clothing somebody give you, you can gift it, a burial space, burial funds, life insurance with a combined face value of not more than $1,500, retroactive SSI or SSDI. If there is a back payment, so when you're found eligible, you're most likely going to get a back payment. The back payment is fine. The back payment amount is excluded up to 9 months. So this is a great time to fund your ABLE account, or fund your special needs trust, or purchase the automobile, or get the dental work, or do all those things that you normally wouldn't be able to do. Property in a specific trust, that is the special needs trust. You can have something called a pass plan, the earned income tax credit, the IDA, something called the property essential for self-support. And then you can have one automobile regardless of value. However, let me give you the trick about the automobile. I actually had this happen to me one time. If you are purchasing a new automobile, so say you have an automobile, you're going to sell the automobile, but you're going to purchase a new automobile. Make sure that you're selling the older automobile first before you purchase the new automobile, because at some point you're going to have two automobiles. And Social Security is going to catch it, and there could be an overpayment situation. So just look at the timing of that. And then, of course, ABLE account, special needs trust, or other exclusionary accounts. Okay, so let's talk about living arrangements. This is a big one. And I always go back and forth about where to put this slide. Should I put it with the initial eligibility, or should I put it with a lot of the general rules? But basically, SSI is for shelter first. It used to be that it was for food and shelter first, but in 2024, the rule excluded food. So Social Security is no longer looking at food and shelter. They're only looking at shelter only. SSI is for shelter first. So if the individual is not, okay, is not paying rent, then Social Security is going to automatically reduce the amount of SSI received by 1/3. So instead of the full 967, the individual might get, I think it's about $650 instead. So Social Security will ding the full amount if the individual is not showing that they're paying their fair share of rent. So when the individual is going in for that interview with Social Security, remember I said there's an interview that you go through. They're going to ask, do you pay rent? Or if you're going with your parents, they're going to ask, well, are they going to pay rent? The answer is yes. Social Security doesn't care if you're living with a relative, if you're living with mom or dad or grandpa, or an aunt or uncle. They're very much going to be looking at what is the rent that you're paying, and is it at least 1/3 of the federal benefit amount of 967? I do have actually a sample lease, so if you need a sample lease, you can contact me. The Social Security wants you to be paying at least one third. In this area, I say really pay anywhere between $400 or $500, and there shouldn't be a problem. If you've already gone through initial eligibility and you're seeing that your SSI is reduced because you let them know you weren't paying rent, you can change that. But the easiest way and the quickest way to get it changed would be to make that appointment at the local field office. Take the rent in, take the lease in with you, and they can make the change on their desktop. If you're simply going to be mailing the lease in, it's going to take months and months and months, and they may not even pay attention to it. So you really do need to speak to someone one-on-one for that particular situation. And then at initial eligibility, the best thing to do is take a copy of the lease with you when you're making that application to show that you are going to be paying your fair share of rent. And the rent, they're going to ask another question. The other question they're going to ask is this the same amount you would be paying, that you would be charging to anyone off the street? So if you're renting from your parents, um, the question is going to be, yes, it's the same amount if someone came in off the street. It is not going to be, oh no, heck no. Do you know how much I would charge somebody? Do you know what rents go for in this area? It has to be, you have to say, yes, it's the same amount because that could be a problem and there could be a ding to the full amount that you're receiving from SSI. Remember, that can be changed. I do have a sample lease that I'm happy to share. And I can always, again, I can always give you the phone numbers of the local field office to make those appointments directly. But really, the best way to get that changed is to go into the local field office. Okay, I saw a question. Let's see what we have here. Let me see. Okay, the best way to get me to send the sample lease is if you all want to, I've got two people that would like the sample lease. Um, Best way to get me to get the sample lease is to go ahead and just email me, and the email address will be at the end of the presentation. Um, that, yeah, I would say that would be the best way to do it. But I'm happy to share that with anybody that would like it. And then you may not need for Millicent, you may not need the sample lease because if your son doesn't have SSI, then for Medicaid, it really doesn't matter. But I would say go ahead and email me and we can talk about that as well. Yep, go ahead and at the end of the presentation, you'll see my email. And then it's also in the presentation that was sent out. And that would be the best way to contact me. Let's see. Okay, my son is, give me one
I
second.
can read it, Marilyn. Are you able to read it? I can read it if not.
No, let's see, I'm reading it. Let's see, wait, because I want to, I don't know that I want to read it out loud. He wants time off, and I do not see how to hold a job he never had. Okay. Okay, I would say, Jennifer, contact me directly and we can absolutely talk about that. Okay, of how the best way to do it. I can tell you that so yes, so what you're going to do is the question is do so when you're creating the MySSA account, you're creating the MySSA account for the individual that's applying for the beneficiary. You're just applying on their behalf. Um, you can have him sit with you if you want to, um, but to create the account, you're doing it in his name. But otherwise, for some more explanation, I'd say Jennifer, contact me directly, and we can talk a little bit more about the next steps. And I'm happy to answer all of your questions. Let's see. And again, my number will be at the end, or Diane, if you want to put my email and my phone number in the chat.
Okay, I just put your email in. I'll also add your phone number.
Okay. Okay, that'd
Hmm.
be great. Okay, so let's talk about some commonly asked questions. So when an individual is working, again, there are very specific working roles that go with SSI and SSDI. We're going to spend a little bit more time on SSI, and then hopefully we'll have time to get to SSDI. And again, a lot of people ask, how much can I earn and keep my benefits? You know, if I work, will I lose my Medicaid? Losing health care is the number one question. Is there a way I keep more of my SSI when working, and when and what must I report to Social Security? So we're going to answer those questions. Okay, why is my, hold on, wait a minute. Why is this not advancing? Oh, there you go. Okay, so so SSI is the month-to-month benefit. Okay. Your SSI is gonna go up and down based on your monthly income. Okay. Social Security is going to reduce the maximum SSI by a portion of the total countable income every month. The basically the rule of thumb is for every $2 a person earns, they lose $1 of their SSI. You're always going to have more in your pocket by working. Always. Okay. I mean, and a lot of times people call Social Security and they ask the question, well, how much can I earn before I lose my benefits? And Social Security is always going to say $85. The reason for that is when you're talking about SSI, the first $85 of earnings is not counted, but you do want to report your earnings every single month. Because every month that you do not report your earnings to Social Security when you're receiving SSI, you are being overpaid. It's very important that you do that monthly. Again, there are no earnings limits. So once you've been found eligible for SSI, there are no earnings limits. Okay, a lot of people go, oh, no, wait a minute. You're going to lose your Medicaid. You're going to have to earn about $50,000 before you lose your Medicaid. So I've given you kind of an example of how Social Security, how they look at income. So this person is earning $1,200 a month. There is a $20 general exclusion and a $65 earned income exclusion. So there's that $85 I talked about, where, you know, when you call Social Security and you ask them, well, how much can I earn before I lose my benefits? They say $85. That's because they don't count the first $85 that a person earns. So that would bring that total down to $1,115. Social Security is then going to divide that by 2, which is $557. They're going to take that $557 and they're going to subtract that from that SSI full amount. And I've given you the 2026 amount of $994 because let's face it, we're 3 weeks away from 2026. So really, as you can see, if an individual is earning $1,200 a month, they're still going to get $437 from SSI every month. It's going to go up and down. If you don't report the earnings, so say you report for a couple of months and then you say, oh, I forgot, or I got, I went out of town, or I was sick, or something happened. Social Security is going to have an estimate of earnings in the system. Okay. But that means that you still have to report, because what about if you earn more than the estimate? Well, now you owe money back to Social Security. What happens if you earn less than the estimate? Well, they owe you money. So you want to be really careful about reporting every month, even if you're late. Normally, I tell folks report by the 10th of the next month. But if you miss that, that's okay. But make sure you're reporting. It's really important because any month that you don't report your earnings to Social Security, you could be overpaid. It's very important to get that done. The other piece of it is if you stop working, you need to let Social Security know that you've stopped working. The reason for that is, again, remember I said they're going to put an estimate of earnings in. The problem is, if you don't report, they're not going to assume that you stopped working. They're going to assume you just didn't report your earnings. And they're still going to keep that estimate in. So you need to let them know when there's any type of employment ending date. Now, there is something called an impairment-related work expense. And these are anything that's used that enables the individual that's receiving SSI and SSDI as well to work and receive benefits. So what they look at is out-of-pocket expenses that support the disability and allow the person to earn income. And even if the items or services are needed for non-work activities. So that means that um, if there's out-of-pocket expenses, you're paying out of pocket, not healthcare, Medicaid, somebody else is paying. You're paying out of pocket for attendant care services, certain transportation costs, medical devices, medications, residential modifications, out-of-pocket expenses for doctor's appointments, for prescription, and sometimes over the counter. Social Security looks at those as impairment-related work expenses, and that can bring that countable earned income down. So, for instance, going back to the person that was earning $1,200 a month, that would bring down the countable earned income that Social Security claims to do that calculation that we talked about. So it just means that you're able to keep more of your SSI if you're reporting the impairment-related work expenses at the same time that you're reporting your income. Unfortunately, Social Security, you can't report those on the app or electronically. That's where you do need to fax in the pay stubs with the receipts from any of those pieces. And there is no true list. It can be almost anything. I mean, you can maybe, I had a lady one time that had the seasonal affective disorder, and she needed a light box. And the light box was an impairment related work expense because without the light box, she kept it at home, but she needed the light box. That was an impairment related work expense because she was able to work and because of her therapies that she would have at home. My mentor, Sharon Brandt, that I learned from with National Disability Institute, used to tell a story about a young man who he needed medication to sleep, but he had a hard time waking up. But he had to be at his office by a certain time because he was in charge of opening the office. So he paid his neighbor $5 a day to come over and wake him up every day, every single day. The neighbor would walk next door, and he would took a key. He came in, and he would wake up the young man and make sure that he got in the shower because otherwise he would lose his job. That was an impairment related work expense. Now there was a lot of paperwork that had to be done, but that is possible. If parents are I'm sorry, that's my garage door going up. If parents are transporting the individual back and forth to work, make sure that they're paying you a set amount and that you're getting a receipt. That is an impairment related work expense. So it's really important to note those to Social Security because that can reduce that earned income piece. There is a continuation. A lot of folks are very nervous about when they're receiving SSI and they're making a high income and the SSI benefit they've hit the break even point. So at some point, if an individual is earning a higher income, I think it's about 1900 a month, maybe 2000 a month, they might get to what's called the break even point. They're not eligible for the cash benefit. That's okay. That's okay. It just means that the individual is not eligible for the cash benefit, but they're still going to stay on the rolls. They're still going to maintain their Medicaid eligibility through something called 1619B. Basically, you're meeting all the eligibility rules, the resource rules. There is no unearned income. The threshold amount for that is $52,000. So basically, an individual can maintain their SSI, earn over $52,000 a year, and maintain their Medicaid. There's also something called student earned income exclusion, and this is for students who are regularly attending school. Income is excluded up to the age of 22. So that means that if a student is regularly attending school, then they can earn up to about for 2026 $9,000 in the year, and they're not going to see a reduction in that SSI. That SSI calculation will be excluded under something called student earned income exclusion. There is no form for this, as there is no form for those impairment-related work expenses, but there is a way to report it. Just need to show that there is enrollment, and this includes summer school. So maybe the student is not going to summer school; they're working an internship. They're working for the summer, but they're already enrolled in a fall semester. That's okay. Let Social Security know, and then the income will be excluded. Again, there's something called a plan to achieve self-support. And I've given you some highlights here. Basically, you have to have income other than SSI or resources that you use to pay for the plan. Plan to achieve self-support is when an individual has an occupational objective. So it means I want to go to school to be a carpenter, a computer programmer, okay? It cannot be, oh, well, I just want to go to school to get a degree. I need to buy a car. No, it is to either achieve an occupational objective. So it can be you want to start a business. There's self-employment. I recently assisted a gentleman who started a hydroponic farm. He was able to get some funding from the local agricultural college, and then we put together a past plan where he now has a hydroponic farm. You have to show a reasonable chance of achieving the goal, a reasonable time frame, and the last step must indicate how you'll obtain the job. And I've given you the pass online, but I can tell you I love writing pass plans. So if you would like more information, again, contact me and I'm happy to assist. It is about a 15-page document, but this is a really nice organized way of putting it together where it makes sense. The other thing is you don't go through the local field office for a pass plan. You go through somebody called the pass cadre. Um, we work with her quite a bit because she's also the area work incentives coordinator. She's very nice, and there's a lot of give and take. So I do like the past plans because it's not a, all right, we're gonna let you do this, or no, we're not gonna let you do this. It's gonna be, well, have you thought about this, or how can we tweak that, or can we make this a little bit better? Now that doesn't mean you can't put in the plan that you need to buy a new car, but it has to be part of the resources that you're going to need in order to achieve the occupational objective. But it's a great plan for the right person. And again, I do love to write them. So let's talk very briefly about SSDI. There's SSI, SSDI. Okay, SSI, remember, is needs-based. There's a set benefit amount. It's directly associated with Medicaid. SSDI is it's the Federal Medical Assistance Well, it comes with Medicare, first of all. So with SSDI comes Medicare. Medicare is not just for old people, it's for everybody that's getting SSDI also. There might be a waiting period before the benefit begins, and there is a 24-month waiting period from the date of entitlement for Medicare. So with SSI, you're automatically eligible for SSI as soon as you're found eligible. You're eligible for Medicaid as soon as you're found eligible for SSI. Medicare, there's a 24-month waiting period before you're found eligible for Medicare. Under Medicare Part A, there's hospitalization. Part B is there is a monthly premium. This monthly premium is going up to, I believe, $206 starting in 2026. In 2025, it's $185. It's going up $21 for Part B. And then, of course, there's a prescription drug plan. Also under SSDI, so SSDI is primarily for individuals that have a work history. Okay, so if you've got those quarters that you've paid into the system there and you have the work history, there is no set amount that you're going to receive. It's all based on your work history and income. The other way that individuals will receive SSDI is from something called CDB benefits, or some people know them as DAC, DAC, and that means Childhood Disability Beneficiary. Okay, so SSDI or CDB benefits, the monthly cash payment to the child based on the Social Security earnings of the parent. So that means if a parent has opened their work history with Social Security, either through death, disability, or retirement, they started getting their retirement benefits from Social Security, then the child, the recipient, the adult child, will, if they were found to be disabled prior to the age of 22, the disabled child will be entitled to one half of the parent's benefit if the parent is living, and then about 75% if the parent is deceased. So that means that if the parent is getting $3,000 from their retirement or their disability, then the child is going to get roughly $1,500. It doesn't reduce the amount that the parent receives. It's just an added benefit that the child is able to get. So instead of SSI, they're going to move over to the SSDI side. And that's if they're found to be disabled prior to the age of 22. This is not an option that Social Security gives you. This it happens. It's mandatory. So I've had a lot of folks go, well, wait a minute, I don't want them to be on SSDI. I want them to stay on SSI because they might lose a benefit, or they're making too much money and now their SNAP benefits might be in jeopardy, or their housing, their rent's going to go up. Unfortunately, it is not something that you can turn away from. Social Security mandates that if the individual is eligible for a CDB benefit, they must take that CDB benefit. So under Title II or SSDI, there are a number of work incentives. First of all, I love this graphic. I'm very happy with it. It made me happy when I found it. I just want to say that offline there. But with SSDI, there are a number of work incentives. I am not going to go through all these work incentives because I know we're short on time. And I want to get some questions. But there is something called the trial work period. There's the extended period of eligibility. Again, they do look at those IRWs or the impairment related work expenses. There are subsidies and special conditions and an expedited reinstatement. Thing that I do want to stress is, remember, under SSI, for every $2 a person earned, they lost $1 of their SSI, and it was a month-to-month benefit. SSDI is not that way at all. SSDI is an all or nothing benefit. You're either eligible for all of it or you're eligible for none of it. So SSI and SSDI benefit, their working rules are completely different, which is why it is so important for benefits counseling. You want to be really clear about the benefit you're receiving, and that's what we do assist with. You want to be really clear about the working rules. What's going to happen when you start earning this income, and what's going to happen to all of your benefits? What's going to happen to SNAP? What's going to happen to housing? What's going to happen to your waiver? What's going to happen to medical assistance? What about Medicare? All of those pieces. It's so important because of the complexity of these working rules. You do not want to get caught off guard. I've had way too many clients that have come through my door at the last minute saying, well, wait, I just got notified and I owe $17,000 or I owe $75,000. So it's very important to have that benefits counseling done so you know what you're in for and we can head off any problems. And if you want to stop receiving your Social Security, that's okay, because there are formats that can help you go into what's called non-pay status without incurring those overpayments. So this is why it's so important for the benefits counseling. Because as you can see, the work incentives are different on either side. So under SSDI, or under Social Security, I'm sorry, SSI, there is something called the Pickle Amendment. And basically what that means is that if the individual moves from SSI to SSDI by no fault of their own, meaning a parent opened their work history with Social Security and now the adult child is moving from SSI to SSDI. They're no longer eligible for their SSI, which means that their medical assistance might be in jeopardy. Under the Pickle Amendment, it basically says it wasn't their fault, and because it wasn't their fault, they still need to maintain their medical assistance. And that's something called the Pickle Amendment. Under Maryland rules, an individual is an SO2, code SO2. That means that they're SSI eligible for medical assistance, and they move to something called the S19, which is under the special groups of former SSI recipients. So it is possible for an individual to move from SSI to SSDI and maintain their medical assistance, and that's called the Pickle Amendment. After JJ Jake Pickle from Austin, Texas, just to be clear, not pickle like the green things. Um, we're going to touch very briefly on ABLE accounts. The one thing that I didn't touch on is EID, which is the Employed Individuals with Disabilities form of Medicaid. It's a form of Medicaid buy-in. And in Maryland, we have one of the best buy-in programs I've seen anywhere. And remember, I came from Virginia, where their buy-in program is horrible. But there is something called EID. Under EID, basically, an individual can be working, they can be earning income, and that's going to maintain their Medicaid, or it's going to get them medical assistance if they need it. If they're receiving SSDI, it's going to pay the SSDI, it's going to pay the Medicare premium. And if you want more information about EID, please contact me, and I am more than happy to walk you through it. Again, it's one of the best programs. I realized I did not put a slide in. I really should have, but I know a lot of people, I'm sure a lot of people on this call know, are very clear about EID, but it's very important to look at EID, especially on the SSDI side. On the SS side, EID is not necessary because you already have medical assistance. But once you are working, you're receiving SSDI, I highly recommend EID. And again, you can contact me and we can walk you through the application. We can get you the application. We can track the application. Okay, so let's talk about ABLE accounts. So ABLE accounts will let people who are disabled prior to the age of 26 save money above the $2,000 resource level. Now, the age changes as of January 1st to age 46. So this means a person that's found to be disabled prior to the age of 46 can now open an ABLE account. The yearly contribution is about $18,000 a year with a max of $100,000 and a lifetime max of $500,000. ABLE accounts are the most effective and efficient way to be able to increase resources at the same time staying within the resource limit and maintaining your Medicaid. So it's really important that you look at ABLE accounts. It really is a less expensive option than the special needs trust. You can open electronically. You can make deposits electronically. I know many people that deposit their paychecks directly into an ABLE account. It does not shelter income, but it does maintain and helps you stay under that $2,000 limit. Again, to avoid overpayments in other situations, make sure you get that benefits analysis before your employment and with follow-up once you are employed. The one thing I do want to stress is we do not close cases. So once you open a case with us, you have an open case. It might mean I'll have you re-sign releases of information, but for the most part, your case stays open with me. We can do updates anytime there's a situation we need to update. Make sure you're submitting your pay stubs, your early receipts, and remember that resource level. And then you can always contact me at any time when you get those notifications that are concerning. And then you can contact me. There is my email address. I think, Diane, you put my email address in the chat as well, right?
Your email and your phone number.
Okay, great. All right, let's see, wait. All right, I've got a couple, okay, so we've got a couple, okay, so once I start to receive okay, does this mean, okay, so the question is, does this mean once I start to receive Social Security, my disabled child will automatically switch from SSI to SSDI? Okay, it will not be automatic, but yes, there will be paperwork. So when you go and you start receiving your Social Security retirement, Social Security will ask, is there anybody associated with your Social Security number? And it would be yes. And then they'll go in, they'll do a brief review. If the beneficiary is earning less than that SGA amount, then generally it's a pretty quick process. But they will move over to the SSDI side or what's called CDB. But there will be paperwork involved. There's paperwork involved for everything with Social Security, unless you need to report IRWs or other things. There's no paperwork. But yeah, when it means they have to pay you money, there's paperwork, unfortunately. Okay, if some with IDD due to aging out of the parent's private insurance, can he still apply for EID? If there's work involved, so if there is employment of any type involved, it can be as little as you're driving for Uber 1 day a month, then yes, you can apply for EID. You do not have to be receiving Social Security disability. You just have to show that you applied for Social Security disability at some point. But yeah, absolutely. Um, Absolutely. And even if you're aging out of the parent's private insurance, he could still have, um, no, you don't have to wait for it to expire. You can do it now. It's not a singular piece. You can have parents insurance, you can have other insurance, you can have private pay insurance, and you can have EID at the same time. Or even while he has Medicaid. Okay, well, if he has Medicaid, there's no reason to have EID because EID is Medicaid. So if there's Medicaid right now, then EID, there's no reason to file for EID because EID is a form of Medicaid. Now, if you get notification that for some reason, um, but MA is, yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, absolutely. So the minute, okay, Millicent, I think you and I need to talk. So give me a call if you get a chance, and we'll go through this, and we can walk it through, and that'd be fine. Yeah, that yeah. So definitely give me a call. Is there anyone else that has any other questions? I'm going to stop share. And that way, if we have any other questions, and again, if you're not even sure if you've got a question or you're not sure of the question, or please just give me a call and we can walk it through. If I can't directly help you, there is somebody in Independence Now. We have a great resources. We're all fabulous. I'm sure that if we can't help you, we have resources that we can help you. And when it comes to directly for Social Security, again, I have a staff of 3. We cover the entire state. So if you're not quite sure even of the where you live, just give me a call and we can walk it through. Okay, somebody has their hand raised. Okay. Okay. I have so L Brooks, do you have a
Yes,
question?
good afternoon. Thank you. I am enjoying this presentation. Lots of great information. And I apologize. I posted my photo, but somehow it didn't allow my photo to appear. So I apologize for that. I wanted to ask, so my son is receiving um, SSDI under a deceased spouse. And I wanted to ask recently, this has been recent that he received it this year. And I recently received a letter stating, as his representative payee, to um, provide documentation about how funds were spent. But I was originally told that as a parent that I did not have to provide this annual payee report. Have you heard of such a thing for with this new law that the parents do not have to provide this report?
No, it's every 3 years, and it doesn't matter if you're a parent or not. You're still the representative payee. So, and generally the report is only 3 or 4 questions, and they're doing it, they don't want to know down to the nickel and dime, no more pennies, nickel and dime of what you're spending. They just want to know legitimately that the money is being spent for the individual. They use that really, that if there's any question of fraud, they use that form to as evidence for fraud. And again, it doesn't need to be down to the exact penny. They just want to know the money is being spent for rent. It's how much was saved. And I think there's something about incidentals. It's only 3 or 4 questions, but it doesn't make any difference about parents. But they don't send those reports out yearly anymore. It's every 3 years.
Every 3 years, and it's for SSI and SSDI. Is that correct?
If you are a rep payee, it's a rep payee report.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Is there anybody else?
Marilyn, I'm not sure if you saw this one, but there was a question that's asking if mom starts to receive Social Security in 2026 while dad was still working for several years, will their disabled child have to switch from SSI to SSDI?
Yep. It doesn't matter. When a parent opens their work history, the child moves from SSI to SSDI. Now, what will happen is, for instance, if a parent opens their work history, whoever the first parent that opens their work history, the child will get approximately half of what that parent is receiving. And then, say, several years later, the next parent opens their work history, but now they're getting more. That means that the child is going to move from parent number one to parent number two, and they're going to get half of what parent number two is receiving. I hope that makes sense. Whichever parent receives the highest amount when both parents are receiving it, that's the record that will be drawn from. So if mom starts to get Social Security in 2026, then the child is going to be moved from SSI to SSDI. They're going to get approximately half of what mom is receiving. When dad retires several years later, if dad is getting more from SSDI, if dad gets more from retirement, then the amount of half is more than what that person was receiving under mom's record, it's going to move over to dad's record. Now, if it's the other way around, then he's going to stay under mom's record, whatever's the highest amount.
Mhm. And Marilyn, I know we are a few minutes past 3:30, but I did want to ask if you could cover, I don't know if it's going to be quickly or if it might be a longer answer, but just in terms of the issue of overpayments, where I've heard, your team sometimes has great successes with people that are freaking out about overpayments, but you all have been able to turn that around sometimes.
Okay, so let's talk. Okay, very quickly, overpayments. Okay, so my team, the way my grant is written, we cannot look directly at overpayments if it's a legitimate overpayment. However, oftentimes overpayments are assessed because of unrealized work incentives, which means that an individual was reporting their income, but they didn't report the fact that they were also paying a large amount for transportation, out-of-pocket expenses. Maybe there was extensive job coaching and case management. There were other pieces that went with it. And that's where we can absolutely help with that overpayment situation. The other piece of it is that, for instance, if there's an overpayment because a person is over-resourced, there is nothing we can do but just recommend that we can help you fill out the reconsideration form. We can help fill out the payment plan, because Social Security will do a payment plan for that. Um, but oftentimes, as I said, overpayments are based on those unrealized work incentives, especially on the SSDI side. One thing I didn't talk about in detail is something called subsidies and special conditions. Now, I talked a lot about IRWEs, and those are those direct out-of-pocket expenses. But what I didn't talk about was subsidies and special conditions, and those are the indirect support. So when a person is getting SSDI, if they have a job coach, if they have a case manager, if they're on waiver, if they've got a personal attendant, they're not paying for that out of pocket. Maybe they have waiver, but if it weren't for those pieces, they wouldn't be working. Social Security wants to know about that. Social Security gives a value, and oftentimes that's not reported. So that's where we can really make a difference. And oftentimes that is the case with the overpayments. If a person has earned too much money, you get the message that says, oh, you've earned too much money and now we're going to stop your benefits. Most likely it's because Social Security was not informed about all of those other pieces out there, the additional supports you're receiving on the job. Maybe the job has been tailored directly for you. Maybe, for instance, the job's been carved out for you, and if you didn't have the job, that job wouldn't exist. These are things that Social Security needs to know about. So it's really important. And as an aside, it's one of the things that has me a little nervous about this new payroll reporting system that Social Security has just implemented, where they're going to be getting payroll information, that PI system, where they're going to get information directly from the employer because they're only getting actual pay. They're not getting all of those other pieces. So I'm a little nervous about that reporting system. So it's really important to make sure that you're noting any of those outside pieces that would make a difference if a person is working. I hope that answered the question. I would say again, Diane, if there's an overpayment situation, again, they need to give me a call and we can walk through the options and why there is an overpayment. Sometimes, again, there's nothing I can do but say, I am really sorry, but here's what you need to do moving forward. But I would say most of the time it's because those unrealized work incentives. Oh, you're on mute.
I want to be respectful of people's time. I see Al Brooks has your hand raised, but if you could just reach out directly to Marilyn, because we do need to conclude for now. And again, I will repeat Marilyn's phone number, everyone, is 240-638-0071. She's on the webinar now, so don't call her right now, but give her a call. I know your phone will be ringing. I know your phone will be ringing,
That's okay.
which is great
That's all
because
right.
that's why the team is here. So that's awesome. And I also
You can
wanted to
also,
mention
the other
her.
thing I wanted, well, the other thing I wanted to tell you, I'm putting my email in the chat. You can also email me, and when you email me, I'll send you back a link where you can schedule an appointment directly with me to talk about whatever you'd like to talk about. And I'm putting my email in the chat as well.
Yeah, I actually put it in, so they've got it twice. It's in there as well as your phone number. So that's in there as well. So everybody has the information. And then again, we'll make the recording available. We'll be putting it on social media and everything. And I just wanted to, as we close, mention great thanks to you, Marilyn, for a treasure of information with this action-packed and information-filled session. Thank you so much for your expertise and giving of your time and your passion today. Also, I want to thank both of our interpreters. I want to thank Jay and I also want to thank Patty for being here today. And just to say in closing as well, we'll be on hiatus for our IM series in January, but we will be returning in February with an exciting session on Courage to Use Your Power advocacy campaign. So that will be for February. March will be a session called Building Stronger Independent Living Communities on advocacy as well. And then April, we are looking to schedule the National Council for Independent Living to talk about the One Big Beautiful Bill and the impact on Medicaid. With that, Jacqueline or Lorna May, if you're on, I don't know if you wanted to make any closing remarks, but thank you for your partnership with this awesome series, if you wanted to say anything else.
No, thank you all for the presentation today. It was very informative. We look forward to, continuing to collaborate and getting as much information out to the community as possible. So thank you all.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Have a great